Platt, and today we try New York Legend. That's next on Platt's Beer of the Week. So the particular beer we have today comes to us from the fine folks at Brooklyn Brewing. This is their black chocolate stout. A little background onto Brooklyn Brewing. Brooklyn Brewing was founded in 1988 by Steve Hindy and Tom Porter. Now, Steve was a foreign correspondent for, I believe, Reuters or one of those news services for years, and he spent 6 years in the Middle East. And oddly enough, it was in the Middle East where he learned to homebrew. Now, that may sound crazy, but I know just with this channel alone, I get a lot of inquiries and questions from that part of the world. Now, I know it's illegal, but I think we know how that works out. But they do have kind of a thirst for that kind of knowledge, and this is where he found home brewing. And when he got back from his stint in the Middle East, him and his neighbor Tom quickly got to talking and realized they wanted to live the dream and quit their jobs to start a brewery. Now, the first move they made may seem a little unusual, but they hired a gentleman named Milton Glaser to create their logo, the classic B logo. Now, Milton wasn't just anybody. He had worked in the, I believe, ad space for a while. He created the logo for the I Love New York campaign of the 80s. Now, obviously, hiring a gentleman of his ilk wasn't cheap, so what they did was basically offer him a piece of the company, a stake in the brewery. Unique ways to figure those things out. At the start, they use contract brews, and they contracted with a company named Matt Brewing Company. Now, I can only imagine trying to start a brewery in New York, trying to find space and go through the bureaucracy they have to have up there. It probably is pretty tough. But eventually in 1996, the dream came true. They found an abandoned factory in the Williamsburg area of Brooklyn and built the brewery there. Now, today, most of the beer is still contracted out. I believe they do it upstate in Utica, the brewery up there. A couple of years before that, though, they probably took the step that helped put the brewery on the map. They hired a gentleman named Garrett Oliver to become head brewer, and he's been there ever since. Garrett, you've probably seen on like History Channel documentaries, the Food Network. He is one of the premier names in the craft brewing industry. He was also, especially at the time, one of the very few African Americans in craft brewing. He's kind of helped lead a wave to bring in more African Americans to the field. In 2003, he released a book, Brewmaster's Bible, and in it he kind of talks about beer and food pairings the way we talk about wine and food pairings, and at the time that was kind of revolutionary to a certain extent. 2014, he won the illustrious James Beard Award. In the hospitality industry, especially the high end of hospitality, the James Beard Award's about as big award as you can get, especially if you're like a chef or something like that, and he won for the beer, wine, and spirits category. Lastly, in 2016, Brooklyn Brewing sold a 25% stake to Kirin out of Japan. Today, the company's beers are distributed in 30 countries over 5 different continents worldwide. Real quick, let's talk about their beers. A nice line of beer, not too big, but diverse enough. Just enough variety, enough size without being kind of ostentatious. First, let's talk about their Brooklyn Lager, 5.2% ABV. This is an amber color lager that is dry hopped. I believe it's one of the beers they contract out because it's one of the more popular brews. Next is Pulp Art Imperial Pale IPA, comes in at 9% ABV. On the website, and they do a pretty cool job of pairing each beer with different foods. This particular beer they pair with tacos al pastor. I'm not too sure there's beer that doesn't go with that, but I'd, again, give that a try too. Lastly is Brooklyn Brewing Summer Ale, 5% ABV. This beer is available March through August. I remember having it a few years back. I remember being a very drinkable beer, well executed. Of the beers I've had so far from Brooklyn Brewing, everything's, like I said, just been real well executed and stylistically, still held stylistic integrity. Well, before we give this beer a try, though, let's check out stats. All right, so today we're going to start questions for Platt. Last beer video, I said if you had a question that needed a little more explanation or something that didn't kind of fit in the comment section under most videos, I do a pretty good job of trying to keep up with that. You can always send them to plattsboozeblog@gmail.com. Put questions for Platt in the subject line, and I'll answer them here. And maybe other people will have that question, and I kind of answer it for everybody, and again, kind of flesh it out a little bit more. Today's question comes from Vitali, and he asked, this is in lieu of my simplest way to make booze video, where I basically make just wine out of grape juice. He asked, how much alcohol is produced in 5 days? I get a lot of those questions. Well, how much alcohol is here or there? When can I drink it, kind of thing. Real quick kind of explanation of the fermentation process. There's 3 main phases. There's the lag phase at the start. Then you have what's called the exponential phase, and then finally at the end, the stationary phase. The lag phase is roughly the first day or so. We sprinkle the yeast in, and the yeast is in a state of suspended animation. When it hits whatever liquid you put it in, beer, wine, whatever, it hydrates, starts to wake up, and then kind of realizes, stretch out a little bit, and like, oh, wait a minute, look at all this sugar. Boys, let's go. That's the lag phase. The next phase is the exponential phase, and this is when the most alcohol is produced. This is generally around day 2 to day 4, 5, 6-ish or so. And this is when, again, the most intense phase. This is when it's just an orgy of sugar eating, reproduction. The yeast is peeing alcohol, pooping CO2. It's just, like I said, a full-blown orgy. And then after that, roughly around day 6 or so, we start the stationary phase. Most of the sugar is eaten up at this point. Most of the alcohol is produced at this point. Also, the alcohol content in that brew a lot of times gets high enough where now it's starting to stress the yeast, not just the lack of sugar. So you kind of have these slow fade off to the end of fermentation. So to disrupt fermentation around day 5, you have most of the alcohol produced at that point, but you still have a decent bit left, and to disturb it then would be kind of counterproductive. Also, to measure the alcohol at that point, to know how much we have, you'd have to take either a hydrometer reading or a fractometer reading, which means we're opening the container. During this portion of the fermentation, especially the exponential phase, opening and closing it to check it, look at it, watch it bubble over, that's how you get your brew infected, and that's how it ends up turning into vinegar. So you kind of want to avoid that. On that particular brew, 10 days is what I recommend. I express the need for patience. You'll thank me if you wait the full 10 days. So hopefully that answered the question a little bit. Well, enough about that. Let's drink a black chocolate stout. Oh boy, kids, that is nice and dark. Oh, look how dark that head is. That is like chocolate milk, that head. Oh, and I bet it is absolutely, I'm just looking at it, it looks luscious. Let's take a quick sniff. Oh yeah, those classic dark malts. You could almost even get to some of the dark fruit on the nose. Boy, I can't wait. Let's jump on in. Oh man, that is good. You have those really dark espresso notes, just a touch of astringency, but it's not over the top. It's still very drinkable. It's still very palatable. When I hit that head, there's kind of a creaminess to the head that kind of eases you into that those darker malts and that darker chocolate and espresso, and that cream up front in the head really kind of helps you get there. Plenty of malt sweetness, and it's a complex malt sweetness. It's just not a simple cane sugar malt sweetness. Yeah, there's a richness to this beer. Just a solid, again, a well-executed beer, 10% ABV. I don't necessarily get a burning in my chest. I know there's alcohol there, but I don't get a burning and everything. But this does kind of fit in the winter warmer category, but you don't necessarily get a burn on it. It's just, oh, okay, that's nice. It's going down, and we're on the right way. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any other questions, comments, or concerns, or beers that you'd like me to try, please leave them in the comment section, or you can contact me on the Twitter page. Until next time, bottoms up.